Hello, everyone, and welcome to the talk How Can Blockchain Make Open Source Work Better? So, first of all, allow me to introduce myself. So, I'm Lauriane Mollier, the founder of Open Source Economy. So, we are a non for profit organization based in Switzerland, and our mission is to reconcile open source principles with sustainable funding and ultimately make open source work better. So we are a community-driven organization with meritocratic governance. So we are built like by the open source community for the open source community. So if you want to participate, well, feel free to do so and reach out. So let's start. How blockchain can make open source work better. So, first of all, what's open source? Because as you will see, there is a lot of definition to open source. So, let's start with a little bit of history. So, open source started in the 80s with the right attention to have freedom as a value first. So, it was all about freedom. So the movement was led by Richard Stallman and how he is used to say, so well, with every program, there are two possibilities, only two possibilities. Either the user control the program or the program control the user. And of course, we want to be on the correct side and we want to make sure that so the users, are not becoming the product of software companies. So in 1984, they created the Free Software Foundation and they established the four essential software freedom. So which are the freedom to run the program, the freedom to study and to change the program, and the freedom to redistribute it with or without changes. So those principles are very great for freedom, but two main concerns will emerge. So the first one is that with those principles, well, it doesn't make it easy to establish clear revenue streams, and free software developers often struggle with having enough funding and resources. And that's particularly sad because, like, most of them as volunteers that really believe in building a better world about better freedom. And despite the huge success of some of the free software that they build, where usually they don't get like almost anything. Yeah, that's sad. The second concern was, if you think about it, like those definition, well, they're clearly crafted by nerds for nerds. But in my opinion, like software shouldn't be limited to nerds, right? Freedom should be accessible for everyone. So the solution to those two concerns is basically to, well, create a great product or great service that people and not only engineers will want to use and to pay for it. So, and what it takes to make great product? Well, engineering is not the only skills that you need. You will probably need some marketing, some sales, some operations, some accounting, etc. And you might even want to fundraise, especially if you want to compete with other proprietary solutions. And so the easiest solution, like the easiest way to do that, so in the 90s, sorry, it was to create a traditional centralized company that everyone knows. And that is how open source projects started to emerge. And we witnessed the creation of Red Hat, of MySQL, of SUSE. And well, this setting is very fine, especially for the beginning, because it allows you to grow the business and to establish a business model. But however, like as soon as your company become profitable, the danger arises because you will attract mhm, him, the wolf of Wall Street, the return driven investor. And he, well, what he cares about is, well, the return on his investment, right? That is his job. And usually your principle and your freedom, well, that's secondary for him. So if he sees your company as a business opportunity, he is going to acquire it. And what he will do in this case, well, there is different scenarios. So the worst scenario of all, that he just may opt to close for the project, is basically there is no financial incentive for keeping it open source. And that usually happen more often if the end client is not nerdy, so doesn't see so much the value of having an open source code at first. In a little bit slightly better scenario, well, he will just kill the project. And likely because he possesses like a proprietary solution that competes with it. So yeah, business is business. And in the best scenario, well, the code remains available, like for people to contribute to, but the community has no influence at all on the future development, and the profit, of course, are not shared with the community. And that is how we're starting to see in the 2000s, like exactly at the moment where open source started to play a critical role in the software industry, where a lot of venture capitalists that started to invest massively in open source. And that is what you can see here on this graph. And ultimately, well, that led to a wave of acquisition by big corporation. And that is how Red Hat was acquired by IBM, MySQL by Oracle, etc., etc. And yeah, so that is like how nowadays we find like the vast majority of open source companies specializing in software infrastructure at first, and then being controlled by big corporation. So yeah, and this model is usually referred to commercial open source, where yeah, the code is available for developer to see and to contribute if they want, and if what they want to do is going to the same direction at the company. But there is no profit sharing and there is no control of the community at all. Cheers. Yeah, smart. But yeah, but that is how we went from a movement that was all about freedom. That's something that I will call more source available, right? Because it's more just like, yeah, like open source washing, I will call it, which is more about having a good image and using the word open source, whether to uphold to the principles. So, as a summary, so what's the current state of open source landscape? Well, we have, I will call that open source 1.0, which refer to the free software open source. And this model, well, usually leads to financial struggle and lack of resources. Why? Because there is no clear business model. It's very difficult to attract financial backers. But on the value and the principle side is very great because it's community led. It's a common good, and then it cares and defend your freedom, but it usually is only accessible for nerds. Then we have, I will call the open source 2.0, which refers to the commercial open source, so with the centralized governance. And here, well, they managed to establish like very clear business model and clear revenue stream, so that's very something positive. Like investment at first is feasible, right? There is VC who jumped in it, but then is all centralized, usually controlled by corporation. Is not at all about community control anymore. And of course, it's not about freedom at all. And so, in the landscape of open source right now, that's the problem that we want to solve at open source economy, because there is no clear dedicated business model that gets and enough funding and stay true to the community. But of course, if you're here, it's because there is a good news. And the good news is that with Web3, we can have the best of both worlds. We can have commercial success and community ethos. And yeah, we can have a clear business model. We can get backed by financial backers, and all that will remain in the hand of the community. Like we will treat software as common good, and we will care about freedom, and this time for everyone. So that is what I call open source 3.0, and that is basically, let's say, decentralized open source. So now the part like the where you want to know how we do that. So, well, if you want to have the best of both worlds, then we need to take the best of what a company's setting is offering and just decentralize that and putting the power in the hand of the community. So basically, for that, there is some pillar that we will want to respect. So the first one, the first pillar of decentralized open source is basically to have a clear business model, right? You need to figure out like a way your project generates some cash, right? And there is a lot of way to do that have been proven working for open source. So on this talk, we will only concentrate on one, which is a bounty system, but you can apply what we will see for all of the business model of open source. And of course, we will help you with that. And the second pillar of decentralized open source is that you want to attract financial supporter, especially useful if you want to compete with proprietary software. And of course, you don't want to attract him, right? Like the big investor who will take over the project. No, what you want instead is a lot of small financial supporter who will fund your project at an early stage and can support you either in a financial or not financial way. And this third pillar, and probably the most important and the most complicated to implement, is to have a decentralized governance. So the goal here is to give some voting power to everyone that contributed to the project, right? Like so contributor and financial supporters. But the goal here is to make sure that no individual or no group of individual can take over the project. And maybe just a point also is that a decentralized governance doesn't need to be slow. What we want is really the best of both worlds. So we want to be as effective as the governance of a company. And as you might guess, that is very complicated problem to solve, and we will take this subject for another talk. Okay, so now that we saw the three pillars that we want to stick to, like how concretely are we going to do that? So let's take the example of the most simple revenue stream in open source, which is a bounty system. So a traditional bounty system works as follow. So there is the user of an open source project who has an issue. So it can be like anything. He wants to have a new feature, new documentation, he wants a bug fix or whatever. And he's willing to offer some amount of money to get this problem solved. And on the other hand, well, we have an open source contributor of this project, and he is willing to solve the issue in exchange for the amount proposed. Okay, so that is a traditional bounty system, but there is some flaw in it. And here in this talk, I will just take three of them. So the first problem with this traditional implementation is that, well, like not only devs are working on an open source project, right? You need also to have bounty for your accounting, for your marketing, for your legal side, etc. And no one usually does that. Then, well, you might just not have enough visibility for bounties, right? Because if you take the dependency tree of a program, well, if you are on the top, well, you are the product that everyone uses and everyone sees you. And so, like, you will get a lot of visibility and probably a lot of bounty. But if you're down the tree, well, people sometimes just don't even know that you exist. So, how you will receive any bounty? And well, there is the very famous comic about this problem, which is basically like, a random guy in Nebraska who's maintaining a library that everyone is using, but he gets absolutely no recognition. So this guy will never get any bounty. And well, the third problem that I want to tackle is basically there is no incentive to back the project, like especially at an early stage. And usually what you need to do is like you need to bootstrap the project until it becomes successful. And then finally you have some support. But it doesn't work that way. So how we can solve these problems. So let's start by creating one token per project. And so here I took the example of two open source projects, so Scala and Linux, and each of them will have their own token. So Scala will have Ska and Linux will have Lin. And well, each project will get the treasury in their own token, right? So if the token price is going up, well, the treasury value will go up. So they will have like enough funding to hire new contributors, pay the servers, or do whatever they want to be successful. And so now with that, with the settings, whenever someone wants to offer a bounty, well, he will not pay in traditional currencies like dollar or euro, but he will pay in the token of the project. So for example, for Linux, it will be in the Lin token equivalent. And yeah, you may wonder, okay, like, how does it solve any problem? You will see. So let's say so the right rectangle is a total bounty offered. So the first problem is that like there is no only dev contributes, right? So the dev that are solving the bounties, they shouldn't take all the bounty. So they get only a part. And then basically we take a part of this bounty like to get to the project treasury. And so, like, basically, like that is to allow the project to pay like other people that are working on the project. So that's problem solved. Second problem. So it was not to have enough visibility to get bounty. So remember this guy in Alaska? Well, he's doing something absolutely crucial for everyone who is using him. So that's normal. That is normal that if people on the top, so people that are building on the top of him, like are receiving any bounty, well, it's normal that there is a little thing of this bounty that goes to him. That's what we're going to do. So on every bounty that people receive, well, we take a little part and we redistribute that to open source dependency so that everyone in the open source ecosystem can make a living out of it. And the third problem is that, well, there is no financial incentive to support the project, especially at the early stage. And well, that's very important, like to attract early supporter and contributor. So if you come back to our setting, well, Linux has a lot of lim token. So if we've managed to find a way so that if the project succeeds, then the token price is going up, well, we will have a multiple positive impact on the project. The first of it is that like the treasury will be valued like at a higher price. So basically, Linux will have more treasury to hire new people basically to work on this project. So great. The second is that, like earlier, a contributor is joining the project, well, greater upside he will have if the project is successful. So that is incentivizing early contributor to join the project, right? And how do we do that? Well, again, we have our bounty and we take a little part, and this time it is to burn the token. And so for the one that are not in crypto, burn a token is mean just taking the token, remove it from the circulation forever, just disappear. And that usually have a positive effect on the price because more the supply is going down, more the price is going up. And that's how we are transforming just a simple bounty into a virtual circle where more the project is successful, then more user are willing to pay some bounty, and then more bounty I pay, more token I burn, and more token are collected to the treasury, which make the value of the treasury increases, which make the project in the position where they can hire more contributors. And more they have contributor, usually more the project is successful, etc., etc. Yeah. So that is how we transform a simple bounty system in a whole open source economy, right? And in my opinion, that how we will finally in open source win over proprietary software to align the incentive of everyone. So at Open Source Economy, well, we are providing you with a platform, where everything is already implemented, so you don't need to do that by your own. And so we are currently under development. So if you want to become a beta tester, well, just ping us and try. And again, I want to say that well, we are an open source project like others. So if you want to participate in building open source economy, I mean, come. So I'm more than happy for that you come. Yeah, and then maybe like the end of this talk. So thanks for the attention, and very important. If you can, please share it. That's very important. Like we need absolutely to spread the word. Sorry, and if you like your mission, please come support us. Yeah, thanks a lot. Bye bye.